This might be one of the most polarizing topics we face when speaking with clients about buying a new home here in the area. Sure, lot size is a big one. Having the primary bedroom on the main level is one. The garage size is important and kind of polarizing sometimes, 2 or 3 car. And heck, east versus west side, we've already established, is a big polarizing topic as well. But nothing seems to really bring out the passion in buyers more than to HOA or not. Out of the hundreds of people that we've worked with over the years, there are certainly some feels there. So let's explore what might be right for you, and maybe, just maybe, we might even change your mind. Okay, now right off the bat, we need to say that although we throw our opinions out there, that's all they are. We are neither right nor wrong. This is a personal choice on whether or not you choose to HOA or not. And there are a lot of things to consider. So let's take a look at HOAs and what they actually do for you. So first of all, I'll just go on record by saying that HOAs, if you're not a fan, largely mean well. They really do. The idea is twofold. 1, to take care of things that you don't want to, and 2, to keep things in proper order so it looks nice. But also, it's super important to know that HOAs are not all created equal. There are massive differences in how they operate, what they cover, what they charge, and what they can even enforce. In fact, really, all HOAs are different. So what kind of things do they do that actually makes life easier? Well, some HOAs actually cover front yard lawn maintenance. So you don't have to get up and cut the grass every Saturday morning. You can, either sleep in, or better yet, you can get up earlier and hit the trails earlier. Another item could include snow removal in the winter. Oftentimes, the alley-loaded homes are not on public streets, and so they don't get plowed in the winter when it snows. But if the HOA covers it, you're all set. Now, some HOAs also cover green space and perhaps the neighborhood's front signage. That big, beautiful sign when you enter the neighborhood, that can also be covered. If not, it deteriorates over time and looks awful. Now, those are certain things that HOAs might do for you, but in certain neighborhoods, HOAs also provide for really great amenities as well. For example, pools, workout facilities, clubhouse, outdoor barbecue spots, parks. Okay, but parks do work a little bit differently here in Bend specifically. You see, 99% of the time, the developer who is required to have some park space in the neighborhood when they're building it, they just give it to Park and Rec. Park and Rec actually manages and takes care of the parks. Not really part of the HOA, however, you are still kind of paying for it through taxes. But another thing that HOAs do is help maintain the aesthetic and vibe of the neighborhood. HOAs can send letters and impose fines on property owners who are not following the rules. What kind of rules? I'm glad you asked. These vary greatly. It could be something like you can't have cars on blocks in the front yard. Seems reasonable. It could also be that you can't have a basketball hoop in your own front driveway. Well, what the heck? I want a basketball hoop. How are we gonna play a game of horse? There are a ton of rules that could be in play here, but some of the more common ones actually revolve around RVs, to be honest. Most HOAs don't allow campers, trailers, or like motorhomes to be parked in the driveway or on the street for more than 48 hours. It's kind of like a loading and unloading grace period. Same thing applies with boats. Now, some allow them to be parked in the back if your lot size is wide enough and can accommodate that, but some don't want your boat or RV or whatever to be seen at all. There are all kinds of rules that can honestly be quite frustrating. From where your garbage cans can be stored, to what kind of fencing you can or cannot put up, to whether you can have livestock on your property, chickens and goats and things. Actually, one of the biggest HOA regulations that we do see in almost all HOA bylaws is the prohibition on nightly rentals, meaning you can't buy an investment property and set it up as an Airbnb. Then there's a question on how involved is the HOA anyway? Sometimes there is an HOA, but it's pretty lax, real chill. Sometimes they're the neighborhood watch, and they are all up in your business all the time. One such story I could recall involved a new construction house that we had closed, and our clients were moving in over the weekend, right? Come Monday morning, our clients get a letter from the HOA stating, now this is one of those rules I didn't know was a thing, but apparently they didn't like the bed sheets were put up as blinds in the house. Well, it was a brand new house. The actual window blinds hadn't been installed yet. They were coming later on in the week. Meanwhile, the windows are wide open. Like, the main bedroom was wide open. So my clients hung up bed sheets for privacy. I feel this is perfectly logical. But the HOA was one of those kind of all up in your business types, and apparently they didn't like the look of it. but more on the look in a second. HOAs, depending on what they cover, will also vary greatly in what they cost as well. If it's just to maintain the signage in the front of the neighborhood, it might be like $100 a year. If it covers yard care and clubhouse amenities like pool and gym, and it might be a couple hundred per month. And if you're talking about condos where the HOA actually covers some of the utilities, it could be $600, $700, even $1,000 a month for a high-end condo. Speaking of the look, HOAs aren't the only enforcement out there. Most people have heard of HOAs, but have you heard of ARCs? ARC stands for Architectural Review Committee. This is like an HOA, but usually there isn't any sort of monthly fee involved because they aren't actually maintaining anything. They're just the visual moderators of the neighborhood. ARCs are there to make sure that the design guidelines of the neighborhood are upheld. If you want to paint your house a different color, you would have to go through the ARC to get approval. If you're gonna do an addition to the house, or add a landscape package, or a hardscape, even changing or extending a fence would be something to run through the ARC. You see, sometimes it's not the HOA you gotta worry about. Sometimes there isn't even an HOA, but there's the ARC. Typically we see ARCs in higher end neighborhoods that have a variety of different builders involved. Northwest Crossing is a well-known example. It is an amazingly well-kept hood based upon neighborhood pride and the ARC. There is no HOA. You see, the ARC isn't only something that applies to existing houses, it applies to all of the new construction that might be ongoing in the neighborhood as well. Okay, so we have HOA and ARC and a variety of different rules and regulations that may or may not apply. So if being told what to do or where to park isn't your cup of tea, forget it. Let's go find a neighborhood that's got none of that. In fact, I have zero statistical data to back this up, but in my experience in general, I would say that probably half of the residences in Bend are covered by an HOA and half don't have an HOA at all. So good news, there are plenty of options either way. That's better, see? No one to tell you what to do, there's no extra fees involved. A homeowner can just do what they please. Now this is the camp I've been in for a long time. I want to park my camper on the side of my house. I want a basketball hoop in my driveway. I'll shovel my own snow off my own sidewalk, thank you very much. It's a workout and that's what I want to do. End of story. But also, so can everyone else. And when you're buying a house, how much time do you really spend vetting the neighbors? Can you even really vet the neighbors? I have friends who felt this way. They didn't want anything to do with an HOA. They found a nice house in a really nice neighborhood. The kind of neighborhood where everybody had a really high sense of pride in the neighborhood. You could just tell by driving through it was a nice neighborhood, but there was no HOA. Yards were kept nice and tight. It was perfect. Everything was great. Then one day, that neighbor's friend brings home a car that looked like it had obviously been in a wreck. I mean, like it was picked up at a salvage yard or something. And then they wheeled out their tools and they began working on it. 2 weeks later, another one, then another. And at some point, it was like, forget putting the tools back in the garage, just leave them out there in the driveway. Sidewalk, where all the cars are right there. Not in the garage, not in the driveway, but in the cul-de-sac. Cars, everywhere. Some even actually on blocks. Okay, it wasn't on a block, it was on a jack, but it sat there for 2 months, 3 months. Another friend has a neighbor with 6 dogs. 6. And not just 6 dogs, but 6 loud, barking dogs. So much that you can't enjoy the peace and quiet of your own backyard, because if they hear you out, they go ballistic, and it's deafening. Or another neighbor who grows a crop, I guess, of pot 2 times a year in the spring and in the fall that literally stinks up the entire neighborhood for months on end. The entire neighborhood. People even driving by on the main road can smell it without having their windows down. Okay, getting off the rails here, but I guess ultimately my point is that there are a number of things that could ultimately drive a neighbor nuts. I will warn you, not having an HOA means more freedom, but it also means having to deal with the consequences. Because the one thing you can't really control are the neighbors. I will also warn you that selecting those neighbors is difficult. Of all the due diligence that we go through when we're dealing with a transaction with buyers and sellers with respect to the house, to make sure that the house is in good order and the house is a good investment, we spend almost 0 time vetting and looking into the neighbors. Because oftentimes it's the neighbors that can really make it a great or horrible place to live. I've seen it play out both ways, and I've also personally had it play out both ways. Personally, for me, it's not about HOA or non-HOA. It's about how much you enjoy your neighbors. Hey, thanks so much for watching. I hope I gave you something to think about there. Remember, if you or somebody you know is thinking about buying or selling here in the area, my team and I would love to be your local real estate resource of choice. You can reach out to us at cromrealestate.com. We would love to connect, and thanks so much for watching. We'll see you over in the next video.